what's up, everybody?
Welcome to Consent Conversations.
Yeah, today, this was a subject that Rachel threw out there. You want to say why? What are we talking about, and why are we talking about?
So today we're talking about you've caused harm or you've crossed a boundary. Now what?
Yeah.
Because that's not the end of the story, right? You don't just cross a boundary or you don't cause harm to somebody and then the movie ends, right? This is life and it keeps on going. And hopefully, if you realize that you have crossed a boundary, you don't want to do it again. If you realize that you've harmed someone, you don't want to do it again. And if this is a person who has agreed to continue a relationship with you, how do you find a way forward after something like that? It's really difficult.
It is. Hey, everybody, raise your hand if you've crossed a boundary before. Yeah. Now raise your hand if you've done it intentionally. Yeah, I'm sure that I
Yes.
have, but there is a difference. However, there is not a difference necessarily in the like recovery process, because
True.
a lot of people, when they cross a boundary, will argue their intention that like, hey, I didn't mean to stab you, but I did.
Right. Unfortunately, when it comes to causing harm to other people, intent does not matter. Your
Yeah.
intention means nothing, because the reality that we're dealing with is you have caused harm.
Yes.
And the reason why you did it, maybe it matters to you, but in terms of healing, in terms of learning and moving forward, the intent does not matter.
Especially in that moment. But I will say something though. Some people love to follow up a crossing of a boundary with a series of punishments that go along with them. And in those cases, I think intent does matter.
Yes, I think for continuing a relationship, there is a really big difference between I did this accidentally and I did this to piss you off, or I did
Yeah.
this to get a rise out of you.
There's also like, I did this accidentally, and you go, okay, well, you bumped into me. Now I get to punch you in the face and burn your house down. You're like, I don't think that's a fair response to
I
the
hear-
thing that happened.
I hear that all the time about like, oh, you want feminism? Well, now men can slap women back. If you slap us, we'll beat the shit out of you. And it's like, I understand what you're saying, but you are not engaging in good faith on this.
No. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about crossing boundaries and what we do about it. You know, I'm going to tell you that, and this is sort of like number one line item on my list, which happens before the apology tour and like all the things that you do to make it up for, which is whatever you are doing or just did, stop. Immediately. And that's like, like people have a very hard time with that one. So especially again, if your intentions are good, especially if you are making jokes. If you made a joke, something that was an attempt at being
Just
funny,
a joke,
not received well, whether it was a digging thing or a very lighthearted thing, if the person across from you does not laugh and actually looks hurt and upset by whatever was said, no more joking about that thing. Don't try to justify it.
No.
Don't try to say it was a joke.
And while I understand the need to defend yourself, because
We all have it.
Right. You didn't mean to hurt the other person, and we didn't like, it's not fun to hurt other people for the most part. We assume if you're listening to this podcast or watching this stream that you don't want to hurt people as a general rule. So we're just going to go off of that assumption.
Yes.
But the need to justify your actions and the need to defend yourself pops up because you don't want that person to think badly of you, and you don't like the feeling of guilt and shame that rushes in from another person being hurt. But try to resist that urge as much as possible, because it's not going to help move the situation forward.
Yeah. And these can pop up out of anywhere. I had a moment, my wife and I went to a wedding this weekend, and I had just finished cleaning out the fridge. Seems like a good thing. wasn't.
What did you do?
Well, because I made a comment about like the weird stuff that is growing in our fridge. I was like, there's a lot of I did it. I took the initiative. It wasn't anything that I had done. I decided to help my partner out anyway, clean out the fridge, and I made a comment saying, "Oh man, there's a lot of things that were growing stuff in there.
Lots of scientific experiments.
And I thought it was funny." She did not think it was funny, and she didn't think it was funny because it's something that like she is like a thing for her that she's like, I don't like that happens. I don't like that I do it. It wasn't a dig at her in any way. And it was meant to be like a lighthearted thing. And in that moment, I had all of the impulses to go, I was just joking. Especially when you're in the car and you're like, we're going to be driving in the car for like the next hour and it's going to be really quiet right now. But I had to stop myself and go, all right, I want to make a bunch of more statements. I like the Peter in me wants to say, this is a real thing. This is something that happens. I should be able to have the space to acknowledge reality. All of my defense mechanisms are like coming up. Mm-hmm. And I had to stop them because I've gotten used to having that brake pedal thing because I know that it's not what's important. What is important is that her feelings are hurt. And the cool thing is, if I stop immediately, she can finish the emotional journey that she's on and come around and have something to say outside of the pain space. So like maybe she does end up thinking that it's funny after she's had the initial emotional reaction.
Right. Once she has the space to get over the shame that came up by being poked fun at for something that she knows she's not good at and doesn't like about herself.
Yeah. All I said was, I'm sorry. I let it be quiet. And then like once she was done processing the thing, she said, hey, this is what's going on for me whenever you talk about that stuff. I know it's a silly thing. And I was like, totally hear you. You've just communicated to me that even if it's a joke around this subject, you're not in a good space to joke about it. And now we move forward.
And here's the thing about crossing boundaries. Boundaries are different depending on the day, depending on the circumstance. There might have been another day where she would have been able to chuckle at herself.
Yes.
And be like, yeah, well, I've been thinking about getting into science after I'm done baking. But on this particular day, in this circumstance, it was not okay.
Yeah.
So just the fact that you acknowledge that it wasn't, my partner and I, we have the same thing quite a bit because, we poke fun at each other all the time. And usually if the other person just apologizes and sits back, I'll explain, hey, that hurt my feelings because, and then a moment will pass and I will add on sarcastically, also, poking fun at each other is just not something we do in our relationship. And you should know that. And it kind of helps to break that tension and help us both acknowledge that, like, hey, in another circumstance, that might have been okay, but today it's not.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people are saying, I do think it's a good idea to explain your intentions and that they weren't malicious. Absolutely. What I'm offering to you, take it or not, is that you do that explanation after you've stopped.
Later.
And the air has been deflated. Because...
And after the apology.
Yeah.
After the acknowledgement, hey... I said something kind of shitty and I see it hurt your feelings. I'm sorry. The explanation can come later.
It doesn't even have to be hey, I said something shitty. It could just be, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're hurting. Well, and that's it. I'm not going to say
that was too far for today.
I'm not going to say a single fucking thing. Well, sometimes it's not even too far because on the same evening, because my wife in this moment was obviously very stressed about a myriad of things. Mm-hmm. She was stressed about her dress. We're going to a wedding. There's like a lot of, I didn't get to do this with my makeup. I didn't get to do, there's just a lot of things that she's internally going on with. She made a comment where she said, I should have gone with this other dress. And my response to that comment was, oh my God, you look fantastic. Wrong thing to say.
I have so much empathy for you in this moment, and I have so much empathy for her in this moment.
I'm using these examples because they're they do happen and people get into fights because of these things. I said, oh my God, you look fantastic. And then she said, well, I don't feel fantastic. And I was like, okay. now
Fair.
again, defensive person might go, what the fuck? I just gave you a compliment. All I did was said that you looked amazing and you made the right choice. In this moment, as an observant human being, I got to go, wow, my wife is stressed out of her fucking mind right now. And
It's not a good moment.
and instead of like me going like, oh my God, I can't even like ... I just went, Peter, don't like make a resentful silence. Create space for her to start talking about conversation anywhere else. However, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like
Sometimes just be quiet.
About anything. There's nothing, and this is a thing that we all go through when our partners are stressed. We don't want them to be stressed. And we want to help shift that. We want to shift that space and fix it. And sometimes you just can't.
There is nothing you can say. Can I tell you, the day of your wedding, I was stomping around my house, screaming like having a Glenn Close level breakdown because I was on day 2 of my period and I could not find my makeup bag. And both my partner and our roommate were like hiding in the garage, hearing me screech while I stomped through the house trying to find my makeup bag. Like, should we go? No, just stay here. Don't say. The only thing that would help is if you can hand her makeup bag to her. And if you cannot do that, just let it be.
Just leave it on the table if you find it.
Right,
Don't even hand it to her.
Just in a really obvious spot. Yeah. And you know, in the moment, it's true. Anything they would have said to me like, hey, we'll find it, don't worry, that would not have helped.
I'm not worried.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah.
But, you know, sometimes you're just like bleeding and you have to look nice. And the pressure of that alone is a huge bummer. Yeah.
Okay. So that's step 1 in our process, which is just stop. Stop whatever you're doing. Stop helpful things. They are adults. Let them carry on through their journey.
And what are some signs that you've perhaps crossed somebody's boundary? What are some physical, visual signs?
Well,
if they are not able to say, stop, you have crossed a boundary, which most people are not able to say.
Yeah. There's definitely a shift in tone in the space. One thing, and this is like a very intense thing, which you should be able to instinctively pick up, which is that they stop breathing.
Yes. Breath is very important.
Yeah. If you see someone that's laughing and smiling, go to, and like they're clearly holding their breath, something's going on. You made an error.
Or if somebody, say you're engaged in more physical activities and somebody was breathing a little bit heavier and all of a sudden the breath gets very controlled. Like a major shift in breath and body language. So if they were still and all of a sudden they're fussing with things, or the other way around, if their body movements were free and then all of a sudden they become very still, or their body starts to draw into itself, shoulders going towards each other. Sometimes the breaking of eye contact.
Yeah.
Not looking into your eyes. That can be a really big signal as well.
We as human beings also instinctively know when somebody is upset. Like if you're hanging out with a group of people and like a pissed off person who's had a bad day walks in the room, you feel that energy shift in the room.
Oh yeah. It's
and like
heavy.
Someone can be in the other room, and the way that they're opening cupboards will send you the signal something is not okay. You had on here no gaslighting in this section. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, because so there's a big difference between gaslighting and lying, right? Because a lot of people conflate the two. Gaslighting is lying. Not all lying is gaslighting. So if somebody says to you, hey, you did this and it hurt my feelings, or hey, you did this and it crossed a boundary, gaslighting would be, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? Gaslighting is specifically a lie that makes the other person question their perception of what is real.
Yeah.
And that is something very, very specific. So amongst all of this, taking accountability and apologizing that we're going to go into, please don't lie. Please don't lie and say, I didn't do that. Or I don't understand. Or like, how could that have made you upset? There's no way that could have made you upset.
Right.
Like just the complete rejection of the other person's experience is a really shitty thing to do, and it's not going to get you anywhere, and it's going to erode trust.
Well, there's something to be said about, and this is part of the reason why the stop immediately thing is a thing. You may be absolutely on the right side of being like, hey, for example, in my story about the dress, I gave you a compliment. You should not snap at me for giving you a compliment. In the grand scheme of our relationship arc,
Sure.
I think in this moment, I'm in the quote unquote right, which I don't ever use because there's not really such a thing.
Right.
However, the thing I do have to acknowledge is none of that shit matters, because what happens in this moment is my partner is stressed. The thing I just said, good or not, added to her stress. We can debunk this conversation down the road. Don't. This is the thing that I want. The reason why I wanted to stop it was like, and rightfully so, there's a lot of pushback of just being like, I had an experience because I had an experience, like you should be punished for it. Or like I had an experience that was negative for me, and because you were the one that created that negative experience, you're responsible for making me upset. And I don't think that is true.
No, and I think there's a very key way to phrase like, I got upset when you did this, or if you want to get even less accusatory about it, I felt this when this happened.
Right.
Not you made me feel this
Right.
way, but I felt bad when you touched me in this way. I felt sad when that joke was made.
Yeah.
Phrasing counts for a lot.
Yeah.
And it's important that no matter what's going on, to take responsibility for your own feelings.
And use those I statements.
I statements, baby.
And listen, it doesn't matter, even if you are being a pro about using I statements, you will still run into the situation of saying, I felt this way when this happened, and the other person's saying, I didn't do that to you, or you blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, I'm just saying this is the current state of how I feel.
Right.
You are interpreting your own responsibility for your involvement in that experience. I'm not going to say that this is all your fault. I'm not even going to say that you did this to me. I'm going to say, and it's hard, and this is like splitting fucking hairs. You did this thing.
I
felt this way.
Those are the facts.
Those are the facts.
That is the reality of what is happening right now.
Right.
But also, the reason that I specifically wanted to mention gaslighting is because I feel like especially I see this or hear about this a lot when two partners are exploring new things and they're maybe like going outside of the norm. So maybe perhaps in a kink scenario. And something that you'll hear about a lot is I gave specific boundaries and this boundary was crossed, and then the person didn't stop. And then when I tried to call them on it later, they say, I didn't do that. Or we didn't discuss that. Like, you didn't tell me that wasn't okay. And that specifically is a whole different section of manipulation and harm that I don't think we're going to dive into too much today. We're going to, again, assuming that everyone is here with the best of intentions.
With best of intentions.
But yeah, gaslighting is really shitty. Let's all acknowledge reality together.
Yeah. Man, I had a really great thing to segue into, and now I'm totally lost. Shit.
And this is a perfect example of what we'll edit out of the podcast.
Yeah, we'll edit this moment out. Yeah, you were stepping into the kink space, and I had something else that was bugging me about the responsibility thing. I want my stove and lights to be gas. Sorry, man. America is coming for your gas stoves, from what they've said.
I can't even begin to get into that.
That's gaslighting. That is actual gaslighting of saying
Yeah.
they're coming, because they're not. Okay, so we've crossed
The
a
boundary's
boundary.
been crossed.
Boundary's been crossed, and
You have stopped.
you have stopped. And I think it's also really helpful to sort of use the metaphor that we've talked about with boundaries of, you've got your little house or your fort or whatever. The person that you trust, you're slowly letting them into your space. You're letting them to the next space. You're letting them to the next space. And what has happened in this moment is they're in a very vulnerable section. They've scuffed up the walls, or they've broken your favorite vase. Broken your favorite vase could have been they walked over and threw it on the ground. Could have been
They bumped
into it backing up. Vase is broken though. In your space, you loved it. Feelings are hurt. What do we do now? Had the thing of stop immediately. Now we're talking about the apology.
The apology.
Pieces of a true apology.
There are very specific pieces of a true apology.
Yeah.
And guess what an apology is not?
What?
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Ooh!
That's not a fucking apology at all, even a little
Yeah.
bit.
I mean, technically, it fits in item number 1 of like expression of regret.
Well, there can be
Just to be devil's advocate.
sure.
There are times.
But those words in that tone, I don't think translates to be an expression of regret. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah. I am going to say there are times that I have had with certain people that I have done something intentionally that was like meant to not to cause harm, but to challenge and like push that person. And they're like, I'm upset about this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. I'm sorry that you're upset. But like, I 100% am did everything that I just did with full intention of doing it.
And see, in that circumstance, I don't think it needs to be phrased as an I'm sorry you're upset. In that case, I would say maybe go more into the area of I understand why you're upset.
Yes.
It makes sense that you're upset.
Boom.
But the I'm sorry is coming from a place of I'm acknowledging the responsibility that I had. And in a situation like that, where it sounds like your feelings are your responsibility in this moment, because this is a dynamic that we agreed to, I understand why you feel that way.
I think that there is also there's this great phrase, and it kind of gets misused in this space of like, I'm not responsible for your feelings. I'm responsible for my actions. I'm not responsible for your feelings. Because we can't control what other people feel.
True.
That doesn't mean that I'm not responsible for the actions and the things that I have done that contribute to your emotional space.
And being responsible for somebody's feelings and considering someone else's
Yes,
feelings
great.
and changing your actions accordingly, those are two different
Yeah.
things. I think in general, we all want to be considerate of how our actions might affect others.
Yeah. Before we dive into because this is, I think, is a layer that we want to get into first. Talking with kids, we teach kids to go over and just go say you're sorry. And they go and check the little box, and they're like, I said the thing. Now it's over.
And that's the only thing that matters.
And that's what we're missing is step 1, which is the expression of regret. Because you're not sorry. Don't say you're sorry unless you're actually sorry.
Yeah, don't say sorry sarcastically. That's
Yeah.
going to make it worse.
It does.
It's just going to make it worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first thing is you need to acknowledge.
You had expression of regret.
You got express the regret.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What comes after the I'm sorry, as I refer to the notes that I typed up about
Acceptance of responsibility and
the acknowledgement
that harm is done.
So I did this thing and it hurt you. Like, I'm sorry I bumped into you. You got knocked off balance. It doesn't mean It doesn't mean like I shouldn't have to apologize because I didn't mean to bump into you. Again, the intent is not the important thing here. In this moment, when feelings are heightened, when you're in the apology, the explanation should not be part of the apology. As much as we might feel, oh, I did it because I was distracted. It was an accident. That doesn't matter in the giving of the apology. You just say, I did this and it affected you this way. Because when we're upset about something and when we're heightened, one of the best ways to help the other person de-escalate is to validate their experience and say, hey, this is happening to you and it's real and there's a reason for it. And you're like, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Like what is there to defend against if somebody is agreeing with you? You know?
I broke the vase in your house. I know that hurt.
Yeah.
I see that hurt you.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you did. You broke the vase. So after that, there has, and you know, people can argue about this, like, you just need the first two parts. I think for an apology to actually mean something, there needs to be some kind of offer of restitution or fixing it. Can I help you clean it up? Can I help you look for another vase? Where did you get it? Can I investigate about maybe having it replaced? Like, is there something I can do that will help fix the problem that I have created, whether I did it intentionally or not? Because now my actions have led to a problem, right? And
Can I ask you a question in this space?
Absolutely.
What if you didn't actually create it? Like, what if the vase was broken? You weren't responsible for the vase. You weren't even in the fucking room. What happens then?
So then what am I apologizing for in this scenario?
Well, because people get accused of doing things that they didn't actually do.
Okay, but if you're getting accused of something you didn't do, why is there an apology?
Well, there's a lot of things that happen in the muddy space of human to human interactions. Somebody comes up to me and was like, hey, you broke your vase. You'd be like, oh my God. I'm like, your vase is broken? I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry that your vase is broken. So I can still step into the like.
But if you care about the person, maybe you will offer to help. But see, in that case, I would say an actual apology is not needed. And when you say, I'm sorry, what you're really saying is, I'm empathizing with you that it's upsetting that your vase is broken. When I talk about the steps of an apology, I mean that you are at the point that you have done something that has hurt the other person. You've stopped doing it. And now how do you start the repair process? Not like, sorry, but I have a question. You know, like we kind of use the word sorry in a lot of places that don't actually mean sorry.
We sure do.
Right? Like it's a thing. It absolutely is a thing. I say sorry all the time. And I'm trying to dial it back, but it's really hard. Yeah, you do tell me to stop. It's true. It's true. It's very upsetting.
Well, let's finish the levels of apology before we get into the grays of things, because like
always
people have real issues in the grays. So we offer to repair the situation. Now there's changed behavior.
So moving forward, how will you help prevent this situation from happening again? With the vase example, from now on, I will look behind me before I back up in this room and make sure that I'm not hitting anything. I will take a moment before I move or before I turn. I will proceed a lot more carefully to make sure I don't break a vase again. That's one of the key parts that, to me, like, you can apologize very sincerely several times in a row. But if you keep doing the thing and you keep causing the same problem, that apology means less and less and less over time. Again, it's another one of those things that erodes trust.
Yeah. I can a great phrase is I could be more mindful of this in the future. You know,
I will pay more attention. I will take a moment.
And then we have requesting or expressing hope for, not demanding forgiveness.
Yeah. I hope you can forgive me. Like, you moving through this matters to me. You healing from the hurt I've caused matters to me.
I like that phrasing.
Not in a, well, I've done all these things. You need to forgive me now. And we will get to the grays of that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But forgiveness, while it's good to express that you want it, it is not the responsibility of the person who has been harmed to hand you forgiveness in order to bring you peace about what you've done.
I think that there's another side of this, which is accepting an apology.
Yes.
There's a lot of boundary crossing that comes in the apology space. Obviously, a boundary has been broken, which is why we're apologizing for the first place. However, there's also shitty ways to receive apologies that crosses the other person's boundaries. One of my biggest things with people is I am absolutely upset that you're having those, that what happened. I want to make amends. I'm sorry for all these things. And then if someone's like, yeah, you should feel bad, or telling me that I should feel guilty about something, then I'll go, wait a fucking second. Now you're crossing into my boundary space, forcing me to feel even worse than I already do.
Well, are they forcing you to feel anything?
No.
Or are
they're
like
attempting
in their
to.
feelings, and maybe it's not the right time for this beautiful full apology that you are willing to offer?
Yeah, I don't know. I have a really big thing about people double downing on guilt and shaming. I do not stand for shaming, which
Yeah,
is
it
which
sucks.
is and I am very mindful about not ever doing that to people, even when they hurt me. Of like, hey, that thing that you did hurt me. I see that my partner or whoever I'm talking to is upset. I never step into that space of like, you should feel bad, or like attempt to like make it
Twist
the
the knife
and
when
make
you
them feel
already know
worse.
the other person feels bad.
Yeah, because I get
Totally
it. It's like
fair.
someone that is operating from a good faith standing space. When they hurt someone that they love, there's pain there already.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't have to fucking kick them.
No, and I would say, not that someone saying something to you is crossing your boundary, but the way you can establish a boundary around that is, I can see you're not ready to talk about this.
Yeah.
I didn't think that comment was necessary, and I'm going to walk away, and we can continue this when we've all calmed down a little bit, right? Because a boundary is not like controlling the other person's behavior. You say, if you cross this boundary, then I'll do this. So I don't like to respond in that way either. I have responded in that way sometimes because I am hurt. I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling scared. Any number of things. And what that means is sometimes it's a really good idea to try and see if it's a good time to give an apology.
Yeah.
In the height of things is not always the best time. Sometimes you just need to like stop.
That's why step one is
Let it
stop
settle.
immediately.
Let it settle.
Yeah.
Let it settle. Because if you make yourself vulnerable and give an apology and the other person is sassy in return, it's going to mess up your apology
For sure.
giving skills.
I think part of the reason why this conversation is so essential right now, and this is people have a lot of freedom that they feel and autonomy being on the internet and just get to say
Whatever they want.
whatever they want. I forgot where I was going with that. God damn it. Peter's blanking all day today.
Would you focus, please?
I'm sorry.
You're crossing my
I'm
boundary
sorry.
by not focusing.
Oh, this is what I mean. People are saying whatever they want on the internet, and we also are existing in a space, and I want to address it in the way that it is being addressed, which is there are a lot of people that are sensitive about a lot of things everywhere.
Yes.
People's feelings are getting hurt
All the time.
all the time.
All the time.
Right now. And that's where I think that and which is different than like us interacting with someone we know. We're talking about just like talking with people and strangers who are like on two different sides of a debate. So trying to think of like a good example that's like not a real offensive example of someone that's like
Cracker Barrel serving vegan sausages.
yes. Cracker Barrel serving vegan sausages. They're offering a new menu item, and that makes a lot of people upset about their definition of Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
Now,
And sausages.
I don't want to just go tell those people who are having feelings, come on, grow up. And like,
I do. I would like to say I do want to say that to those people.
I do. That's not what we're trying to get at in our conversation about crossing boundaries. Because what we're trying to talk about in everything that we've just said is like their experience is real.
Yeah. Real.
Their experience and the feelings that they have are valid.
Mm-hmm. The experience is very real.
So how are we navigating these waters of like almost to the point of you being upset about this thing is actually offensive to me? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm offended by your offense.
I'm offended by your offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is like when
Right.
people make comments about like gay marriage or LGBTs, like
that's
or
exactly
women's rights,
what I was
whatever,
thinking
and
about.
it's they're like, this really upsets me. My first response is like, oh my God, I'm sorry you must be going through a tough time. My first response is, fuck you.
Why don't you shut the fuck up?
Shut the fuck
How
up.
about that?
Nobody fucking asked you.
Yeah, but you
and
know,
that's why we get into fights online.
But I feel the same way when I see those Instagram profiles of people with like 10 kids. I have the same visceral reaction that I think some people have towards gay marriage, which is your lifestyle is disgusting. And you are an affront to my sensitivities and the integrity
and I think that you should
of the American
apologize.
people.
You got to express regret about what you said.
I am very
you're
sorry. It is not a fair reaction. My reaction to somebody else living their like beautiful, probably Christian life and, you know, parading their 10 blonde children on Instagram. If they are really happy, I think that's great. And my visceral reaction just comes from my programming. But that's why I keep it mostly, not today, but mostly I keep it to myself. I don't comment on their page like your lifestyle is gross.
Yes. You keep it to yourself. It's not being said. But the thing is, though, is we run into these moments in our relationships, whether it's like our partners or our family members. Your family member says something and like, or you said something that upset your family member. Like, I think everyone should have health care.
How dare you?
And they get upset.
So you're saying you want to increase my taxes.
Right. Your first reaction is not, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for like.
Your reaction is you should change your opinion. And I'm offended that you have this opinion.
Right. But I want to dive into this thought experiment because, you know, I want to make the world better. People get into these fights about these different things that like don't necessarily matter. We're trying to talk about what it's like to cross boundaries for people. And technically there are these moments, because we talked about intentions at the top of this, that like you're saying, I think people should have health care. You're not intending to hurt anyone else's feelings in the room. In fact, you're intending to give people fucking health care. Mm-hmm. And then someone's feelings gets hurt.
So is that crossing a boundary though? Just because someone's feelings are hurt, does that mean you crossed a boundary?
That's what we have to hammer out. Because the answer is no.
I didn't think so.
I don't think so. So how do we know when we've crossed a boundary and when someone's just having hurt feelings?
Well, I think boundaries are dependent upon having a conversation, right?
Or establishing norms in your relationship.
Or establishing norms in your relationship. So a boundary doesn't just exist out of thin air. And it might be that you have a boundary that your partner or your friend or your family member crosses and you didn't even realize it was a boundary and you have a reaction. But that to me is more about things that someone else is doing to you or your space or your property.
Yeah.
And like expressing an opinion, as shitty as it may be sometimes, I don't think that's crossing a boundary. Now, if somebody has said to you, hey, just to let you know, this particular subject makes me really uncomfortable and I prefer that we not talk about it. Is that okay? If you agree to that and then later on bring that up, I would call that a boundary violation.
But you and agree to it. You don't have to agree to it.
You don't have to agree to it.
For example, if you're in the LGBT space and you're kissing your same-sex partner and your parents go, hey, I don't ever want you to kiss your partner in my presence, you can say,
I hear you.
I hear you. I hear that it upsets you. This is something I'm going to continue to do because it's a huge part of my identity.
And at that point,
and we can give some options. You have the option to leave the room.
Right. And you can enforce your own boundary by leaving the room.
Right.
But
yeah.
But that's a you thing.
Yeah.
As my niece likes to say, that sounds like a you problem.
No, absolutely. But I love diving into the nuances of how people actually exist. People don't exist in a black and white space.
No.
It's right. It's about the relationships that you want to maintain. If you want to blow up that relationship, no, everybody has to get along.
And the thing is, you don't always have to respect other people's preferences, but then if they feel the need to enforce their boundary by removing themselves from the situation, don't be fucking surprised.
Yeah.
That's all.
So let's dive back into the relationships we do want to fix.
Where we do want to move forward.
Where we do want to move forward, where we have crossed a boundary and we want to address it.
So we have stopped. We have taken accountability and apologized.
And now the road to recovery, which is tough. We haven't gotten to the trust part yet because I want to keep things on the more superficial space. Road to recovery. Step one is not to keep pushing the issue.
Don't keep poking the boundary that you poked. Like, are you over this yet? Is this okay yet? Is this okay yet?
Yeah.
If you've bumped into someone and you've left a bruise, don't keep poking the fucking bruise.
Well, this comes down to what you said about like a person that's going to saying that they're not going to bump into the vase again. They keep bumping into the vase. Or like, I asked you to stop leaving the cups in the dish, the sink. Like, I came over here, cups are in the fucking sink. You're pushing my boundaries all the time. And this is a really interesting thing about why couples get into explosive fights in the energy equation that is in my book coming out later on this year. Because I was just writing about this chapter earlier today. Here's the thing. Everything comes down to the energetic cost benefit analysis. Mm-hmm. So you and I are in a couple. I hate that you put cups in the kitchen sink. All right. Now I see that cup on day one and I go, all right. I either pick a fight with Rachel or I put the cup in the dishwasher. In that situation, I go, all right, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to put the cup in the dishwasher. Yeah. The amount of energy it would cost me to put the cup in the dishwasher versus
having a
fight with you. Put the cup in. Thing is, though, is you keep doing it. And now the energy equation has shifted because now it's not, oh, I just put the cup in the dishwasher. Now what I'm weighing these options against is I either put the fucking cup in the dishwasher myself until the end of goddamn time.
And know that my partner doesn't respect my requests.
Right. Or I pick this fight. And now this fight has all of the energy that has to bring us back to day one.
Day one, this is not the hill I'm willing to die on.
Right.
Day 500, I am going to die on this hill.
I'm going to kick you down this fucking hill.
That's it.
All right. So that's how the small things weigh on us in the boundary crossing space. Is we're always weighing that energetic exchange of like this small thing can eat away at you over a long time. And the problem is in long-term relationships are a myriad of small things
that are done over and over and over again until the end of time.
Both good and bad.
Yes.
Yeah. There are those small things that add to your relationship all the time. It's great. And then there's all those ones that chip away at things.
And that's what happens because you're dating a human. You're dating you're dating a person, and people have faults and people have things that they are not good at. Hopefully they're working on them. Sometimes they're not working on them hard enough to make it feel okay.
Well, that's another thing, which is each of us, and we've talked about this before, have our own definition of pace and time in terms of recovery.
That's true.
There are people that can do something and they're like, you know what, I did it, I'll never do it again. And then because they can do that, they look at their partner who is not gaining the same skill as quickly and are like, you're doing this on purpose. This thing is never going to change.
The you're doing this on purpose is perhaps one of the most insidious attitudes that can poison a relationship.
Yes, yeah.
Is assuming that your partner is not coming into this from a place of good faith, that your partner doesn't have your best interests in mind, and that your partner doesn't care. When so often that is not what's actually happening.
Yeah.
But that germ of a thought can infect and bring down your entire relationship.
I put it into my wedding vows. There are a lot of rules in my kitchen. And my vow to my wife was that I promised that I would continue to try to learn all the rules. And there are little moments where like I'm sitting on the couch and and
the cabinet is closed
like
in
the
a
cabinet is
different way.
closed, and in my head I'm like, what the fuck? The ramekins are stacked right. I made sure, like, you know, I go through the list of like
checking off the side work
like,
of your kitchen.
What could you possibly have done?
Oh, there's something.
And but the thing is though, is I have had the conversation with her and I put it in my vows of like, yo, I am trying.
Please always remember
please
that
always
I am
remember
trying.
I'm trying. There are a lot of rules and none of them make any sense to me. We have a drawer that is full of just stuff. There is a pattern to the random assortment of things in that drawer. And
that would stress me out
for
so
sure.
much.
But I have yet to figure it out. and I'm trying.
I also think that this philosophy that's from Dan Savage, I think that comes into play very much here, which is the concept of price of admission.
Yes.
When you are in a relationship with somebody. And by that, I mean, so my partner leaves cabinet doors open, right? Mm-hmm. And I've asked him to please close them. I don't want to hit my head. I don't want him to hit his head. But sometimes, you know, he's an amazing cook. He is the primary cook in our relationship. And sometimes when he's putting stuff away or cooking, he leaves cabinets open. Now, is it annoying that he leaves them open? Yeah. Could I just close them myself or have a fight about it? Sure.
Right.
But to me, I say, okay, this is something that my partner is not good at. He's not doing it on purpose. And you know what? There is so much other good stuff that I get from the reason the cabinets are open that I'm going to consider this part of the price of admission to getting to eat his delicious meals and getting to exist with a partner that cares about emptying out the dishwasher and putting away dishes at the end of the day.
What you have just talked about, which is a really important thing, if there is not growth, we get to redraw the boundary.
Sure. Absolutely.
The price of admission thing is a perfect thing of being like, okay, I originally had this boundary about the cabinets.
And you know
I've
what?
decided to redraw it because I acknowledge this is not going to change.
And I have reached a place of acceptance where it no longer causes this specific emotional reaction that I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
In this case, I'm not putting the responsibility on my partner to prevent this feeling. I have seen, you know what? I think this will be easier and better for our relationship if I do the work to de-escalate my own feelings and adjust my boundaries depending on how much my partner can actually do. Because our partners are not perfect and neither are we. And there's a limit. And there's a limit to how much you can like change for another person, especially in a set amount of time.
And this is an important thing about redrawing the boundary. Your partner doesn't get to redraw your boundary.
Yeah, no.
you get to redraw your own boundaries,
And they
but
can
somebody
redraw
can't
theirs.
say, just get over it.
Yeah, how about you fucking
How
relax?
about you fucking just accept that?
Oh, is that what you wanted to do today? You
yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
fight?
They can negotiate that and be like, listen, I'm going to have a hard time. This is going to be a thing, you know.
Yeah. But you are the only person that gets to decide whether your boundaries move.
Right, right. There's also the process of like self-forgiveness in the road to recovery, which is we all, holy shit, carry around so much guilt about things. If I hurt somebody's feelings, I'm going to take it to my grave.
Oh, it is very easy for me to go into a total shame spiral.
Yeah.
And I just retreat into myself. And I know it's not helpful because then I'm kind of putting myself in the position of like, I'm so ashamed that I can't think. And then my partner feels responsibility to help comfort me and bring me out of it.
Right.
Which really sucks.
Yeah.
And I should just be managing that on my own.
And this is another really important thing, especially in the relationship space. If you have created harm, if you've crossed a boundary, let's say you had an affair, committed adultery, and you feel really guilty about it. You cannot keep bringing it up to make your partner soothe your guilt. That's such a shitty position to be putting the person that's hurting in, that you hurt, to be like, hey,
Now I have to
can you
comfort
make me
you.
feel better about the fact that I hurt you?
And-
That's what our instincts are.
Of course, to apologize over and over and over
Yeah.
again. But what we're really doing is seeking reassurance, seeking comfort.
It's hard.
One of the lessons that I really absorbed about if you're in a social situation and someone has told you their pronouns and you get them wrong, one of the most recommended ways to fix it is just to, I'm sorry, give the right pronoun and move on. Don't keep apologizing because then the responsibility is on the other person
Yeah.
to comfort you and say, no, you're fine. It's okay. You're still a good person. I still like you. Like, and they've just been made really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, just say you're sorry, acknowledge, and move forward. Don't make it about you and your mistake. Don't make it about you.
I'm going to give you all an amazing movie recommendation. We just watched it this week. Go see You People on Netflix. It's fantastic. And it is a masterclass in how we make each other uncomfortable. and it's about race and religion. It is some of the most uncomfortable and hilarious conversations you'll ever see. But Julie Louis-Dreyfus is spectacular, and she plays a mom who is absent-mindedly offensive the entire time by trying to be too apologetic and like.
That is one of my deepest fears as a parent, is that I'm just going to turn into that mom.
Well, listen, watch this movie. It's very good. I loved it. But that's what you're talking about, of like constantly putting it on the other person, because you're seeking forgiveness too much.
Yeah.
Got to talk about trust. We were just talking about having an affair. People talk about what is the road to recovery post a betrayal. And I'm using an affair because it is the simplest betrayal. You don't always like, they sold our house behind our back, or,
or used our joint account to buy something massive, which is also a boundary violation.
These are all boundaries, but
affairs are a classic.
Affairs are classic.
You violated a huge
this
boundary that we set in place. What the fuck do we do now?
Yeah. What do we do?
What do you do, Peter?
Well, the one thing that you have to understand is that the road to recovery is long.
Yes.
Trust is a fragile thing. And when you break it, it takes a while to put back together.
Just like it took a while to build.
Yeah, just like it took a while to build. It can be put back together. And one of the most important things that I try to get people to understand in the putting it back together process is that you will never go back.
No. It will
you
never
can,
be exactly like it was before.
it can go forward and in a new way. And in fact, you can find new levels of trust in ways that you didn't before.
Absolutely.
It can open up doors for new understanding that allows people in more. But most people, when they're approaching the trust recovery process, they are trying to go to the past.
I just want to go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
So, when trust is broken in the affair space, number one thing is, as part of the road to recovery, and this is, we can use our like house analogy for this with the vase, a lot of reassurance, which is, okay, you've let me back into this room. Hey, I see the vase. You know what I'm going to do?
Stay away.
I'm actually going to stay all the way on the other side of the room. Now, I know that that's not necessary. Can't even reach the vase. It's 20 feet away, but I just want you to know, see the vase 20 feet away. So just so you can breathe, let your guard down, and be okay with me being in this room, not breaking that vase.
And there is a big difference between I'm staying away from that vase and tell me I'm doing a good job for staying away from the vase. Aren't I doing a great job staying away from the vase right now? Where's my
look at that vase?
Where's my staying away from the vase cookie? Huh? Where's my approval?
Yeah.
For staying away from this vase?
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah. Huge difference. Don't do that version.
Don't do that.
Don't do that version.
Don't do that.
Do the acknowledging of it. And then you say, and this is what's most important, because some people in the non-forgiveness side of the equation of the person that was cheated on will opt in for reassurance for fucking ever. Reassurance becomes a drug. And what is actually happening in that space is you are not repairing the trust.
The trust
in the
is
relationship.
not being built back up.
The trust is in the safeguards. So you're like, you know what I did? I put a fucking electric fence inside the space so you can't even go near that. Yeah. And it's like, it's got security alarms and cameras. Like, so now what you've trusted is not me. You trust the fence.
You trust the
You
cameras.
trust the case. You trust tracking your partner's phone and the fact that they never go out past 7 o'clock.
You trust turning on their location.
Right. So people start to trust all the safeguards and the assurances,
but not the actual person.
not the actual person. So, and this is why it's about moving forward, the road to trust has to include practicing trust, which is, okay, I'm in the space. I see the vase. I told you I've been standing 10 feet away. Are you okay if I stand 5 feet away? Still not going to touch it. I'm going to keep my arms by my side. I'm going to be in this room, in this space. And then you do that for a while until the person is so cool and casual at you being 5 feet away.
Now, how do you feel about me being 3 feet away?
Right.
And I do feel like this metaphor is like running away from us a little bit. So just to...
No, because part of the reason why I like the metaphor...
It is. I just wanted to bring it to like a real world scenario.
Which is being in the same space with someone of the opposite sex.
Right.
Of like, hey, going out, there's only going to be a group of people with us. Hey, I'm going out. I'm going to go see this person. It's going to be one-on-one, but we're going to grab coffee in the afternoon. Hey, I'm going out with this person. It's going to be one-on-one. I'm going to grab one drink. I'll call you when I get there. I'll text you when I'm on my way home.
Hey, I'm being sent on a business trip with this other person in the company.
Right.
And it's going to be a couple days. And
Let
we're
me
going to
know.
be working together a lot.
Right. Let me know
What can I do to help that feel safe for you?
How often would you like me to check in? I'm happy to share whatever, whatever it is. But
so there can be a combination of safeguards along with,
yeah,
well, now you're moving closer. Can we offer a little more support?
Right. But the answer can never be that you're just trusting in the safeguards. You have to improve it because you might as well just not be in this relationship if you're not going to bother repairing the trust. That's number one. The other thing is, in order for us to have a relationship, you do have to trust me. And if the answer is that you're just never going to trust me, I can never have a relationship with you.
This
and then
is not a
I actually
relationship.
can't trust you either.
Well, not only that, but if I am not willing to offer you trust, how are you supposed to reach a place of self-forgiveness?
Right.
If the other person is not saying, you know what, I'm recognizing that you are worthy of more trust.
Right. There's also the very real thing, which happens to a lot of people, which is, God, I'm continuing to pay a lot for this crime. 5 years makes fine. You're making me serve 20 years. And if I'm going to pay for the crime, I might as well do the fucking crime.
Oh God.
And I did not used to think about that until I dated somebody that was so insanely insecure.
Yes.
That all they did
Yes.
was tell me how I was cheating on them, how I couldn't be blah blah blah, and I had no reason for them to ever not trust me. And then I was like, you know what? You've made my life a living hell around this.
I might as well.
I should sleep with that person
That-
because my relationship doesn't have any trust anyway.
No, real talk. That was the first time I ever cheated on a partner. Is when I was with somebody so deeply insecure, and he was insecure because a previous partner had
Sure.
like cheated and hurt him abominably.
You're not that person.
And it was awful. But we'd been dating for like 6 months, and not only would he constantly accuse me of cheating on him, but if I mentioned anything in person about possibly having a previous relationship or having an attraction towards someone, it was like days of stonewalling and silence. And so eventually I was just being accused constantly all the time. And I was like, I mean, if this is what it's going to be, I guess I might as well earn it. And that actually led to my first ever threesome, because when I go big. But that was the first time I ever cheated on somebody, because I was like, well, clearly there's no trust in this relationship anyway. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Also, I was, 21 and stupid, and that was not a great way to deal with that situation.
I still haven't cheated, but I did once we broke up, slept with that person because I was like, I got a lot of shit for having you in my life.
Might as well earn it.
Yeah. And I'll honestly, like, there actually wasn't anything going on between us until things were over. And I was like, yeah, well, you know what? I am attracted to you. And now I can.
I've paid my dues.
And I've paid my dues. I've already paid my dues. But the thing is, though, is there's so many people that are on the road to recovery in their relationships when there is a betrayal, like an affair. A lot of them feels like it's impossible to ever move forward. And again, most of that comes because they're trying to move back. And there are ways after that your partner has had an affair that you will start having conversations about bigger things that you should have been talking about the whole time.
Yeah, because usually, unless it's a momentary, unless it's a momentary accidental thing, something like an affair, it's not just one decision. It's not just a moment in time. There is a bunch of other shit behind that. Excuse me. There's a bunch of other shit behind that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just because now you're focused on the bigger immediate problem of you crossed my boundary and now we have to heal, it doesn't mean that everything else that was already happening before it happened went away.
Right.
It's all still there. Well,
so let's talk about that. There is our next line item is when to call it quits. And my biggest way to assess this is there are things that are mistakes, and then there are examples of poor judgment.
Yes.
Certain things can be fixed. All right. Walking into a room, accidentally bumping into a vase, fine. Whatever. However, letting a bull into the room demonstrates poor judgment. And that person
going into the room on roller skates
Right,
when you're not
right.
great at roller skating.
So that is a situation where you go, you know what? A mistake we can work on. We can work on the road to recovery. We can find a way to sort of like improve and grow together. However, I can't fix your shitty judgment.
And unless I see you actively working on it
yeah,
immediately
right.
in a very real way, I'm not going to wait around for it to magically change or for me just to get beaten down and used to it.
Right. So like when people that are in monogamous spaces that and this is also in the open space, you can cheat in open and poly.
Oh, yes, you
Yeah.
can.
Bringing it back to a fair thing because people understand it. There's a difference between, man, I was going through all this stuff. I had this night, this person, we were feeling really close. We bonded over the evening. A kiss happened because we were both exercising poor judgment due to our alcohol. Like there's all other things. I'm sorry. I've been going through these things. It felt like a moment of validation. I needed this person is demonstrating an awareness of what happened, all the methods that led up to it, their road to recovery, so on and so forth. However, if you've got an equal person that just fucking randomly happens to fall on genitals all the time because they're not,
I hate falling on
they're
genitals.
not like taking, they may have a problem with alcohol or
They may have a problem with sexual validation and needing that from as many people
Right.
as possible.
Exactly. So that is the difference between a mistake and poor judgment. And the mistake person, you can work on it and you can have the relationship if you want to continue to move forward. But the poor judgment person, they may not be ready for you right now. And that's an important thing. Holy shit, is timing such a big thing in relationships that I don't think is talked about enough. You can be two amazing people that
You could be perfect
you could be
for each
fucking
other
perfect for each other, not right now.
in 10 years.
In 10 years. Yeah.
And it's not going to make a single difference. And
Right.
why should you force yourself to be miserable waiting for that 10-year in the future version of that person?
Yeah.
I think setting up expectations around who your partner is going to become rather than who they are right now. If you can't accept who your partner is right now, like don't waste your time.
But there's not even just accepting it. There's also, I had a relationship in my mid-20s, and it was one of the most dynamic and passionate, spectacular fucking relationships of my entire life. Still look on it with joy. However, I was in my mid-20s. She was in her early 20s. And we reached a point where we're like, okay, are we done? Are we done seeing other people and are we locking this down? No? Well, then I guess we got to end it.
We're done.
And that was sheerly just like we weren't having any issues. It was strictly a timing part
You
of
were at
life.
different places in your life.
And it wasn't about not being in love with each other, which is people are like, well, if you're in love, you'll make it work. It's like, no. She was in
Love
her,
is not all you
It's
need.
not. She was in her early 20s. She needed to experience a whole bunch more. I needed to experience a whole bunch more. And because we both love each other, we're like, yo, I'm not going to stop your whole life because we're blissing out right now on each other, and it's hard. It's hard to do, but you have to know you may just need to call it quits just because your partner has some growth to do or you have some growth to do. And that can be it.
And that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a key of what makes it hard for people to move on from relationships. I certainly know in a couple of my early relationships, I would have this fantasy of like getting to redo it with what I know now and getting to redo it with the person I am now or the habits I've put into place now.
Yeah.
But the answer is like maybe it still wouldn't have worked.
For sure.
Like you honestly never know. There's no guarantee of a relationship working out no matter how much you've worked on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's okay to acknowledge that and walk away, as painful as it is.
Well, then there's another part of the growth process, which is there's growth that you can do together in a relationship.
Yes.
That you can sort of like, we talked about this in the last episode of like having your own autonomy in your long-term relationships. So yeah, can you still grow while being in a relationship? Absolutely. And you should.
Sometimes it's even easier to grow in a relationship because you know that whole thing of like, if you don't love yourself, how is anybody going to love you? Which I think is really just mean. It's a mean and slightly unrealistic thing to say of like, unless you feel totally okay with yourself and you love yourself, you don't deserve the love of another person.
love of another
It's kind
person.
of the messaging there.
Yeah.
And for me, I have found it to be the opposite. I have found that it is easier to get to a place of loving myself when I have a loving and supportive partner who's saying, hey, even in the moments where you don't love yourself, I love you.
Yeah.
Even in the moments where you don't think you're deserving of love, I think you're deserving of love. And that feeling of love, support, and safety has enabled me to like stay afloat and grow in ways that I found harder to do on my own.
Yeah. I mean, that's something else you have to watch out for is being mean to yourself in front of your partner.
Oh God.
Because it's very easy to do because we're feeling insecure.
Yeah.
We're saying our insecurities out loud to someone that we trust. However, to your partner in those moments, it's like,
Hey.
stop making fun of my fucking,
Right.
that's my favorite fucking person.
Why are you being mean to my girlfriend?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Which is something my partner and I say to each other all the time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can you stop being mean to my boyfriend? Thank you.
There's also, so there's growth that you can do with your partner. And then there are some things that, whatever it is in the dynamic of your relationship, that you cannot achieve this growth, this particular journey that you have to go on.
Yeah.
And that's another reason when you have to call it quits. Doesn't mean that you failed. Doesn't mean the relationship is bad. It is just, if you're going to move forward, even if it's like being better for this person down the road. Let's say you're like, oh, we'll get together
Again,
in like in 10 years. You can't do that right now. You're not ready.
No.
They're not ready. Yeah.
And I will say there, in terms of big time boundary violations, if the person who violated the boundary has shown regret and has changed the behavior and has like done all the things, and as the hurt person, and this is only in relationships that you want to continue, you are never under any like obligation to continue a relationship with somebody that has crossed your boundaries or hurt you. But if you have made the choice to continue that relationship and you are seeing growth and change from the other person, there has to be a point, just like as there is in the beginning of a relationship, where you go, you know what, I'm going to step into the abyss and trust this person. I'm going to step into the abyss and love this person. There has to come a moment where you decide, you know what, I'm going to step into the abyss and trust them again.
Yeah.
And if you can't get to that point, that relationship is dead in the water.
Right.
Many years ago with my partner, I violated his boundaries in a really big way. And it was not on purpose. I could have done more to prevent it, but it was really big. And for 3 months, I demonstrated that I was sorry, and I changed my behavior, and I put more safeguards in place, and we walked back our boundaries. And there was a lot of that. And still there was this wall. There was this wall between us because he was having a really hard time, understandably, letting it go. And so I decided to get us some mushrooms because doing shroom trips was something that we had established we did together. And I kind of surprised him, and I took him to the Grand Canyon, and I was like, I have shrooms and I'd love to do a trip. And while we were tripping, we were kind of getting into it. I started crying because I was very deeply sad about how distant we had been and about how sad I was. And I said, you know, I'm so sorry that I did that, and I cannot keep going on like this. And this trip either needs to be a new beginning for us, or it needs to be a really beautiful goodbye, because I can't keep going. And in that moment, you know, in that way that hallucinogens can sometimes assist this moment of vulnerability and acceptance. And I really was ready for either answer. If he had said, you know, I don't think I can do it, I would have said, okay, let's enjoy this weekend and say goodbye. But when I said that, he like took a moment and he goes, of course I don't want to say goodbye to you. And then it like exploded into like rainbow and glitter, and we had a wonderful evening. And there was something about me just saying to him, something needs to change, and us being vulnerable with each other that allowed him to let it go. And I honestly believe to this day that it saved our relationship.
Wow.
But it wouldn't have happened if he hadn't been willing to take that leap into trusting me again.
Well, listen, I mean, thank you for sharing that. First of all, there's so many wonderful things to unpack. And I put this out there, Rachel's advice for anyone that is struggling with like getting over something in a current relationship. And I will also encourage doing it on mushrooms, and not as a joke.
No, that's very real.
And part of the reason why I'm saying that, and this is more true for LSD than it is for mushrooms. Part of the psychology studies that they're doing in that space, and the metaphor that I really loved about LSD in particular, is your brain develops a lot of different grooves, patterns,
Pathways.
so pathways. So if you imagine it like snow, and you're sledding on that snow or walking on it, you're making all these grooves and trails and stuff. LSD and some other psychedelics is sort of like adding a fresh fallen snow, because what it's doing is it's letting this part of your brain randomly talk to this part of your brain. They've never talked to each other,
But all of a sudden,
and
there's
all of a
this
sudden
new
they
path.
can, and new pathways can be formed, and it encourages a reset. It allows you to take something that was normally a fixed behavior or a place you were stuck in and create a new path. So tell your therapist and your couple therapist that you're going to go do some psychedelics together and work on your relationship.
Honestly, my therapist, who my partner joins in on our sessions sometimes, she's fully in support of that.
Yeah.
Like she really is. And I'm so grateful to her for that. But she absolutely acknowledges that sometimes when we're having a hard time forming a new neural pathway, a little bit of assistance.
Listen, this is just the science talking. This isn't the liberal media telling you and corrupting your blah, blah, blah.
No, sure, this is science.
I'm talking about the actual science and psychology that's happening out in the space. Take it or leave it. You don't have to do drugs if you don't want to do drugs, but...
And as always, engage with them mindfully and responsibly.
And responsibly and all those things. Okay. Now, we've talked about like what happens when in the road to recovery when you've crossed somebody else's boundaries. We hinted on a little bit about this before, but I want to talk about mindfully handling when people cross your boundaries. There's a lot to be said about people operating from this space where they say they owe me all this shit because my feelings are hurt. There's a lot, especially when we were talking about the internet before, of people that say, you did something and I have hurt feelings and therefore you're responsible and you owe me something because I'm sad. And that isn't true.
Generally, the concept of owing somebody something
It's not true.
like is
Nobody-
not true.
nobody owes you
unless
anything.
it's like money and you've made an
Yeah,
agreement to return the money. But like even in a partnership, like you want to listen to your partner, you want to respect your partner, and they may deserve to be listened to and they may deserve respect and they may deserve all these things.
Yeah.
But you don't owe, you are not obligated
Right.
to give them anything, really.
Yeah.
And that's the harsh truth of it.
It is. So healthy ways and mindful ways that we could talk about having our boundaries taken care of when they're hurt. We've brought it up a little bit before. I'm just saying it out loud in cleaner terms, which is defining what you need in your recovery. Mm-hmm. It is your responsibility to communicate to your teammate, I'm hurt, and this is what I need moving forward.
And you don't have to say that in the moment of hurt.
Right.
You don't have to say it an hour later. You can take your time and really question yourself and ask yourself, what is going to help me move forward?
Yeah.
And, having that conversation in a de-escalated space, coming from hey, I'm starting this conversation with steady emotions and a clear head, and we'll go from here. But your partner, we've talked about this before, your partner's not a mind reader.
Right. Right.
They're not.
And you may not have the answer. I've had conversations where it's like, hey, this is something that keeps happening. I don't really know how to fix it, but I do want us as a team to start putting some thoughts to how we're going to address this issue
Let's
that keeps coming up.
brainstorm.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're going to keep coming back until we find something. I don't have anything, but what I'm communicating to you is this is hurting me. I want this pattern to change. I don't have an answer. I respect the space that you're in and the reasons why it can't change in a very obvious way, but we got to do something.
We need to work on a plan.
We need to work. We need to come up with a plan. You can have that. Your answer can be a non-answer, but it can be a plan that we as a team are going to do something.
And I know we're talking about this a lot in the context of romantic relationships, but
It's true everywhere.
but these are conversations that you can still have because friends can hurt you. Oh man, family can hurt you.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay if you've been hurt by a family member to say, this really hurt me, and assuming that they take responsibility and apologize, saying, you know what, there are some things that I don't feel okay with right now. But here's some things you can do or help me with that might support in me feeling better and getting back to being comfortable doing or seeing those things with you.
I mean, I think we should actually be having more of those conversations with our family members that people don't have it enough. I've many times had to have the conversation of, hey, this really bothers me. Part of the reason why I distance myself and don't see you as much is because of X, Y, and Z. I would love to see you more. However, we really need to address X, Y, and Z.
That's hard to say, and it's hard to hear.
It's got to be said.
No, it can.
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that
Yeah.
you're not a bad person if it's difficult for you to say that, and you are not a bad person if it's difficult for you to hear that.
Right. Right.
That these are not conversations that we're taught to have, that we get to practice when we're kids a lot of the time. It's just say sorry and now go play together. So a lot of this stuff, you're going to have to navigate it from a place of deep, deep discomfort, and that's okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of negotiating that happens.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the fridge metaphor?
I do. So there's this great fridge metaphor of, let's say somebody wants to do something with you, or
Okay.
they want to put something in your fridge. Okay. Somebody came over
Go right
with a
ahead.
salad, and they want to put something
Put
in your
that
in your
salad
fridge.
in my fridge.
And you go, you know what? Normally, sure, but my fridge is broken right now, so you can't put anything in my fridge. Oh, yeah, no problem. But I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bring a salad then. Come over next week. Hey, I'm here with my salad. Can I put it in your fridge? You know what? Fridge is still broken. Okay. That's fine. Cool. If that keeps happening, there has to be a point where you fix the fridge.
Or I stop coming over with salad.
Or you stop coming over with salad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
to
yeah.
translate this a little bit, if you put a boundary in place, a very reasonable boundary, but also something that's limiting your capacity to engage with someone or connect with them, which is your right. If they say, hey, I acknowledge this for right now, or I acknowledge you're feeling this way right now, and I'm happy to walk it back for now. But I'm going to continue to engage with you in the faith that you are going to work on these feelings for yourself.
Yeah.
And if I don't see you working on them, if I don't see you fixing the fridge, then like I might have to change my boundaries at some point. You
Right.
can't keep dangling this fridge carrot. You can't keep dangling this in front of me of like, no. I'll be fine with it next time. Next time I'll be totally cool. Just I'm not feeling up to it today. But next time, absolutely. You can only do that for so long. There does come a point where you have to fix your own fridge. You have to fix your own hurt feelings. You have to work on forgiveness. You have to work on trusting again. Like,
And that shit's scary.
and it is scary.
Yeah.
And you might think, well, I'm not the one bringing the salad over. But the thing is, like, do you want that person to keep coming over? Then you gotta fix the fridge.
Well, this is kind of flipping it back, like that story you talked about with your partner that you took to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Kind of from their perspective of like, hey, at some point you either need to step into the abyss or fix your fridge,
Yeah.
or I can't keep coming over with my salads.
Exactly. So in order for you to continue a relationship, work needs to be done by both people. And if you say that's unfair, like why should I have to do the work if my boundaries were violated? It's not really fair. Life isn't fucking fair.
Right,
Like
right.
I don't have an answer for you.
Well, the bigger thing is you can't have the expectation of them coming over with a salad and you not fixing your fridge.
Right. Those two things.
You
cannot
either got to
continue
let
to
go of the
exist.
salad or fix your
fix the fridge.
fucking fridge. This goes for all of you. Fix your fridges, God
Fix
damn
your
it.
fucking fridges. I do also want to take a moment and say, in the cases of much more serious boundary violations, right? In cases, I'm going to say specifically in cases of sexual assault, where sexual assault can happen without the person who committed the assault knowing that they did it.
Yeah.
It really sucks, and it happens because some people are not good at reading body language. Some people don't check in. There's a myriad of reasons why a sexual boundary could be crossed.
There's also the unintentional. You and I were listening to those In the Know podcasts.
Yes.
We recommended episode 1. Episode 2 was a really interesting episode because it was a series. It was a lawyer presenting a series of cases that were different men that were on trial in these particular cases where they had no idea sexual assault happened, and the cases of the grade was like, there's one in particular that stood out, which was there was a girl, they had consented to have sex, they were in the dark. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
They were in the dark, and she started crying, and after like 30 seconds, he was like, "Hey, are you okay?" and stopped. The thing that was being tried in the case were those 30 seconds of like, why didn't you immediately stop? It's like, I didn't know that they were crying. You know, but this is the reason why I bring that up is because, holy shit, gang, do we have to be very mindful and
Incredibly.
very vigilant about checking in with our partners.
It's literally a safety issue.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, if you have crossed somebody's boundaries in that way, first of all, I just want to say that it doesn't mean you're a horrible person. It doesn't mean that you are beyond redemption. It doesn't mean that you are never to be trusted again. Perhaps not by that person. Perhaps that person will not be in a position to trust you again. But it doesn't mean that it is an eternal life sentence
Yeah.
to being a piece of shit. And what I would say, if you are looking to heal and move on and forgive yourself from that, all the things we were talking about like these, all the pieces of making an apology, you may not have an opportunity to apologize to the person you hurt.
Oof.
And that is a very real thing. And they, as much as you may crave their forgiveness, you may never get it. And It may even be the more respectful thing to do to not try to give an apology, to not try and get forgiveness from them. So in that case, what do you do? I think in that case, you need to surround yourself with people who care about you, who can empathize with you, and who can support you on your own path to self-forgiveness. I also think that getting to self-forgiveness means that you do the other parts of the apology. You change your behavior moving forward.
Yeah.
You put more safeguards in place so that that doesn't happen again. And in some cases, if there's any kind of restitution, if you can't make it directly to the person you hurt, there are plenty of organizations that support people that have been sexually assaulted. And volunteering, donating money, just something you can do that to you feels like a piece of restitution for the hurt you've caused. I think that is a really key element towards self-forgiveness. I have a friend that's really struggling with this right now.
Wow.
That he has violated boundaries, and he has been on a long road of self-forgiveness, and he's really, really struggling. And I know he's not a bad person. I know he didn't do this shit intentionally. And I hear him. I have been in a place in my life where self-forgiveness has been very, very far away.
Yeah.
But making yourself of service, possibly to or adjacent to the community that you have hurt, and surrounding yourself with people that can offer you a lot of compassion, right? Because it's continuing to hate on yourself and beat yourself up is not going to make you better, and it's not going to offer you acceptance and forgiveness.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that Dan Savage talks a lot about when it comes to closure, which is closure is something that you do for yourself.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that carry around the guilt of things, and they want to fix it, absolve themselves out of the guilt, and they will say, hey, is it okay if I like call up this person I haven't dated for 10 years and told them that I cheated on them with their best friend? I just really need to get off my chest. And it's like, abso-fucking-lutely not.
No.
It's like, they don't need to know. They don't need to know. They're fine. They're happy. It's like, all you would be doing is stepping into their space, wherever they are at in their own path of recovery, reopening wounds or creating new wounds.
Yeah, causing more harm.
Causing more harm where nothing exists. It's like, yeah, sometimes you have to find closure, and that is really just you doing the recovery process on your own. Mm-hmm.
Or with people that
Right.
have compassion and support you.
Yeah.
So supportive friends, therapists, things like that. Try to find a way to offer yourself some grace. That doesn't mean excusing your behavior. That doesn't mean not changing your behavior
Right.
moving forward. But offering yourself grace means that you are willing to accept a different story about yourself other than you're a piece of shit.
Yeah. Man, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's real.
None of this is easy.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Relationships are fucking hard. Any kind of interaction with another human being has so many complexities.
Levels, shades, of gray,
layers.
more than 50.
Yeah. Anyway, we're meandering.
Yeah.
This is
We'll
sort
let
of
you
like,
go.
We'll let you go. Thank you all for joining. We'll see you later. Goodbye. Gotta find the mouse. Goodbye.